live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it is Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Good evening. Happy to be with you wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Last show of the month of April on this Wednesday. Two-thirds of us, about an hour or less removed from a very healthy nap, ready to tackle Sleepless with Steve. It's just like the old days when we'd nap before the show when it was midnight. You know, it's just like the old days. Can you imagine doing that now, that show now, at that
God.
ungodly of an hour?
If I'm getting paid, maybe, but still.
No, it's true. It's 100% true. But good to be with you guys tonight. We are tackling two horror movies today. Reviewing one, discussing another. We're reviewing Abigail, the new radio silence film directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, the men behind the most recent Scream movies, which we also reviewed on the show. And then we are also going to be talking about the Blair Witch Project, the recent controversy there. We're going to be talking about the Blair Witch Project, then the actors really asking Lionsgate and Blumhouse for retroactive royalties. This was a story I kind of saw really start because I'll talk more about this during the news segment, but Joshua Leonard's been a friend of mine on Facebook for years. I actually communicated with him, not regularly, but like somewhat consistently about shit. It's already been like 13 years. Just looking at the calendar. When he directed his very first movie, The Lie, back in 2011, which was a really weird movie. It was good, but it was really dark. It's a movie. It's tough to explain, but it's like Joshua Leonard's in it and he stars in it too, and he directs it. And it's him and I think his actual wife. I think it's Jess Wexler. Yes, Jess Wexler. And basically, it's based off this short story about this like young married couple. And he calls into work, but his abusive boss like tells him, you better get your ass to work or you're going to be fired. So he lies and says that his newborn daughter died. And it like spirals this whole thing like out of control. It's a really interesting movie. It's called The Lie. And yeah, so I remember when that movie came out, I was talking with him a little bit about it and stuff, and I wound up reviewing it and really liked it. So he's cool. And that was during the time on Facebook where I would look up the most random people and be like, you know, let's see if they accept my friend request. One other note, completely irrelevant, but when I first got Facebook, you know what I did? And this was like in 8th grade. When I first got Facebook,
wow,
I added like 3 people that were also named Steve Pulaski. One of them accepted, and I messaged them, Dad, ?
That's really funny.
And then I got blocked. And then I got blocked by another.
That's
Steve
really
Pulaski.
good. That's a baller move.
I was bored. I was fucking bored that day. But anyway, though, so we're going to be talking about the Blair Witch a little bit. I wanted to throw that little anecdote in there. One other note while we're just kind of shooting the breeze here. Finally watched it. Don't want to get into it too much because we are going to review it on the show. Selfishly, I scheduled it. It could be our review in like 2 weeks, but I'm not going to be here. So I made you guys watch the Pop-Tart story and talk about that movie because the following week, let me tell you, I don't know, Joe, I don't know if you've seen it yet. I know you did, Dom. You saw it in theaters. Me and Catherine watched Late Night with the Devil on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I can't wait to talk about it. Cannot wait to talk about it. You haven't seen it yet, have you, Joe?
No. If I didn't have school going on, I would have totally stayed up literally late night and watched it. It's literally taunting me. Every time I turn on a TV, Shudder is advertising that movie. I'm like, I know, I'm getting to it. I'll get there. So every time, I walk past any TV, it is like Shudder's baby right now, man. They're like, hey,
it is.
Hey, have you seen this?
Yeah, it's so good. I cannot wait to talk about it. Real quick, and it's not going to ruin anything for you, Joe. It's in the first 15 minutes. Dom, did you catch the Svengoolie reference in the beginning?
You know what? Not directly, but I think now that you mention it, I'm like, that makes sense because that's totally 1000% like in the realm of this movie. So,
David Demichalian, he has appeared on Svengoolie several times,
okay.
and in the
Local
beginning of
Chicagoan.
and in
Yeah,
the
man.
because and in the he's a Chicago radio host, and in the beginning of the episode, he says, I want to say a big hello to my parents who are watching from Berwyn, Illinois." And I'm like, what a dude. What a dude. That was totally a not subtle Svengoolie reference. If you know, you know. Like,
That's
I,
really funny.
I'm like, what a dude. I did the Leonardo DiCaprio point to the TV and everything. So yeah, I cannot wait to talk about that next month. That's going to be a fun review, to say the very least. Not even mad. Catherine and I were upset we didn't get to see it in theaters because it wasn't out here. But like honestly, we did a great setup. She put a curtain over the blinds to mask the light, and we turned on a projector like with lights on the background. It
Oh,
was
nice.
it's a really good. It was fun to watch that movie as the sun went down.
Not
Really
that
was.
not that I don't look forward to any movie that we review, whether I didn't like it or liked it, because I look forward to discussion. But I am genuinely looking forward to like the next like 5 or 6 movies we have lined up after this one, like with starting with Challengers and I mean Late Night, Furiosa. Like I'm excited to see it, and Hitman on Netflix, Linklater's new movie. It's like it's honestly a solid start to the summer season of like movies we got to talk about.
Conveniently left out Unfrosted, the Pop Tart story.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
simple
Well, I mean, you're
oversight.
not here for that. That's why.
Simple oversight. No, no, no lie though. Yeah, we're seeing Challengers this weekend, which looks so good,
Yeah.
so good.
I mean, I am looking
So
forward to.
much polyamory is going to be brought up in the wake of this movie, and it's like, oh man, put to the test.
I
I'm
am
like,
looking forward to Late Night with the Devil, because that'll be that's the first movie I'll watch like literally when I graduate. It would be like, oh, perfect. Like I can literally stay up one night watching it.
yeah, I definitely recommend maybe going a little bit extra mile for the home viewing and stuff, and like turning off all
Oh
the
hell
lights
yeah.
and things like that. It's so aesthetically pleasing, analog horror, and we're gonna, Dom and I'll geek out about that a little bit, during the show and stuff. Our local 58 TV, love and
Mhm.
everything like that. So yeah, so can't wait to talk about that movie. I still got to write the review of it too, but yeah, lot of great stuff on the docket too. That's for damn sure. How are you doing, Joe? You kind of alluded to it with school and everything, but how are you surviving or thriving?
I'm doing all right. I'm coming down to the end here. So it's kind of like make it or break it at this point with some of these assignments. Am I gonna put all my cards in this one? Am I gonna put all my eggs in this basket, or am I just gonna, half-ass it and hope for the best? It's like, I'm having that senioritis temptation like all day, every day. Um,
So the professor's watching this. He's putting in one maximum effort.
I
He's
am.
not half-assing
No,
anything.
no lie here. I am putting maximum effort in right now. That doesn't mean I don't have literally like a devil on my shoulder going, hey, maybe we can open Wikipedia, look at some articles there, all that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, I'm just kind of like, I'm just going through the motions here. I'm tired, of course. I was literally knocked out, and my alarm went off at 6, and I put it on snooze. I wake up at 6:15, and I'm like, ah, crap. I'm like, I have Sleepless tonight, and I didn't get anything ready, so I jumped on my computer. I was quickly typing everything up while I had some pasta on the stove, like heating up as well. I was like a stay-at-home mom, man. I was like getting everything right on the computer. I ran downstairs, stirred pasta, ran back upstairs, did this, did that. Came back downstairs, put my pasta in a bowl. So forgive me if you see me eating, but yeah, I'm hungry. But I'm ready to review some movies and talk about some movie news. I'm looking forward to the show today. Dom, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I developed a kidney stone after drinking this every day.
Oh
No, I'm kidding.
no. Oh, okay,
No,
thank
no, I'm
God.
kidding, kidding.
Oh, it scared me there for a second.
Developed a kidney stone in like 6 days. That's incredible. But no, I am making sure. Thank you for your concern, gentlemen and Catherine. I'm making sure to drink so much water that I have gone to the bathroom like 6 times during work, and it's like, wow, I finally get it because I've always seen the gym bros that carry the gallon jug of water with like the funny words on it. It's like almost there, or it's like just
Yeah.
getting started or whatever. And it's like I knew why, but it's like, oh, I'm understanding why now, truly understanding why. It's like, yeah, this is the price of gains.
Yeah. Dom, I recommend too because I've stopped drinking. Those protein shakes to me, they're a great way to get things started and get your muscles
Yeah.
moving and everything. I got to a point it's like I don't really need to drink it anymore, but I do recommend eventually like get a water bottle like this like constantly just man refill it constantly and just drink water.
I have a Yeti cup.
Oh, perfect.
I have a
There you
Yeti
go.
cup.
Just literally
Yeah,
refill
so
it constantly. Anyways, go on.
yeah, no, just doing that and trying to work out. Again, just at home. I have not stepped foot in the gym. Not that I'm against gyms, but it's just that's what connects with me. And I have a little spreadsheet, and it's like, oh, hey, the numbers are slowly going up since October, and it's nice. Um, so we'll see. It's just because I read online, it's like, yeah, you're not going to see any significant gains or even like largely measurable gains until like a year from now of
Yeah.
constantly doing it. So it's like, yeah, that checks out.
It's 100%.
Yeah. So and I feel like that I'm not going. I'm the kind of person that can like their body can revert back very easily.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I think consistency and discipline is the reason why I'm doing it all at home,
So here's
and that's going to be my greatest challenge. So if I can get over that, I can do it. So
another thing too is it definitely is something your body could snap back to whatever if you like you start to lose consistency of going to work out, but you very
mhm.
much could also regain it as consistently once you like start back up and everything.
That's good to know.
It's not as quick, of course, as you losing it because it never is. But
Of
like
course.
it's easier to snap. Like you might be Dan Stevens 1 minute and then you can be Kevin Durant the next.
I understood that reference.
There you go.
Um,
I would hope so, because it parlays very nicely into the movie discussion that we are going to have today. It's the Abigail. It is the new radio silence horror movie.
does it?
Ra-
Talking about abs? Like I've
I
been
don't know.
working on my abs.
That joke was a good lead-in, I guess I would say.
Okay, sorry.
That joke was a good lead-in, no less. Probably a lead-in, not a parlay there, but
It's fine.
it is Abigail, though. Matt Bettinelli Olpin and Tyler Gillett, they are back. This is another original horror movie from them, somewhat original. And it is the first, I guess, original movie they've tackled since Scream 5 and Scream 6, which we were all pretty mixed about, very much so. So it's kind of nice to see them go back and do something original, because the last original movie they did was pretty good, Ready or Not. Rewatched that movie with Catherine a couple of weeks ago,
Love that movie.
probably actually more like a couple of months ago. Very good movie.
Yeah.
Holds up still, really well done. It was a great watch in the theaters too, I remember. And if you liked Ready or Not, well, Abigail has a lot of the same qualities of Ready or Not. Visually, narratively, there's a lot in common with this. Here's the weird part with this movie. And it's hard to review this movie because of its twist. But here's the thing: if you do even light research on the movie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you already know, and they kind of weren't the most subtle about it in the marketing campaign.
That was the
So
whole marketing campaign. Yeah.
it's weird because the twist of the movie is revealed like an hour in, maybe even less. And then, but if you know it going in, the characters don't know it. So you're kind of waiting for them to catch up to you. It's kind of weird how they did this thing. I almost wish they would have just called this movie what the movie is considered a reboot or a remake of,
Yeah.
which is Dracula's Daughter, which tells you right then and there what Abigail is. I kind of wish they would have just called it Dracula's Daughter so we wouldn't have this, like, is it a spoiler? Is it not? I've already come out and say it. I said it in my review too. I think this isn't a movie where the plot is very mechanical and is very involved either. And I wouldn't bring it up to begin with if most of the stuff worth discussing about the movie doesn't happen until after the twist is revealed. Even then.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, Abigail's a vampire in so many words. And the movie is basically, it starts out as a heist movie where like these, what is it, like five or so characters, five or six of them, and they pull off this kidnapping of this wealthy mogul's daughter, and they take her from one mansion to another. And after they abduct this girl, they think they can extort the father for money to get the daughter back. But then it turns out that the daughter is a vampire and starts offing them one by one. Got a pretty dense cast of character actors here. You got Melissa Barrera, who was obviously in the Scream movies with the Radio Silence directors. She kind of takes on the lead role as Joey. You got Dan Stevens, who you just saw a couple weeks ago in Godzilla Kong: A New Empire. You got the late Angus Cloud, who died last year. Catherine Newton, who was in Lisa Frankenstein. Then you got Kevin Durand. That D's doing a lot of work there. Don't want to confuse him with somebody else. And William Catlett as well. So you got to, and of course, then you have Alicia Ware too, who plays Abigail. So a lot of really cool personalities in this movie. Kind of has a bodies quality to it initially because all these misfits in the same room. And then you got Angus Cloud, who's kind of like this like dopey cross between Pete Davidson and Post Malone.
Yeah.
In this thing, which is kind of fun too. But yeah, there's a lot here that's very similar to Ready or Not. Did you see Ready or Not, Dom?
No, I did not.
It's so similar. I said in my review at stevepulaski.com, I said, I wonder if they kicked around calling this thing Here I Come. Because there's a lot here that's very reminiscent of Ready or Not. Like the kills are outlandish. It takes place in a very nicely furnished mansion. It follows a lot of these like eccentric character types. It's got a lot in common with Ready or Not. And the funny thing is Radio Silence didn't write the movie either, which just makes it a little bit even more interesting that this thing has a very, very similar quality to Ready or Not. But I did like it. I think it's a fun horror movie. I don't think it's a great horror movie, but I think it's a fun horror movie. I think that there is something here, as far as a genre work is concerned, just a bloody like horror, slight comedy too. I did like a lot about this, and there's a big reason why that I'll get into in a few. We'll go Joe, then Dom for general thoughts.
So, if you kept up with the marketing for this movie, or if us just saying ballerina vampire makes you go, that sounds like fun in a horror comedy movie, you're in for a treat, because it definitely delivers on that. It is fun. I did have a good time with it. But it's interesting, Steve, that you said, like, you didn't think, things didn't get really interesting to talk about this movie until the reveal. Because for me, I had quite the opposite effect. Where after the reveal, I still had things to talk about, but everything actually leading up to that to me was actually way more interesting, and I was actually liking the movie more. And then when it got to the reveal, it's not that I didn't like it then, I did, but it's just like, I was kind of enjoying this kind of like Dusk Till Dawn, like, thing of them not trusting each other and everything, and like, they're like, okay, who's this guy? Not Dusk Till Dawn, but just like, these bottle movies, where like something like they're stuck in this place, they're being killed off one by one, they don't know who it is, almost like bodies in that way. And I was like, damn, I know what the twist is and I know who's doing it, but shit, I wish I really didn't know who it was, because I'm actually really enjoying this part of the movie and how all the characters are interacting with one another. I think actually the biggest surprise for me here are the performances, man. Everybody in this movie I thought was actually really damn good. And they played off each other really well, especially in that first half where no one knows who they really are and there hasn't been a clear threat established. So it's like, no one knows, like, can you trust this person? Is this guy really for real with his backstory? Because we don't actually know each other's name. They have a Reservoir Dogs thing kind of going where they all use fake names and everything. And like Dan Stevens, man, I'm gonna gush about Dan Stevens here real quick. Dude, what a great actor, man. And I just saw this dude hanging out with Kong, and he was the most hippiest dentist I've ever seen. And now I come to this movie, and you could go see this movie in two movies that are battling at the box office. And you could walk into this movie, completely different guy in this movie. Has a New Yorker accent, complete a-hole, and funny as hell in this movie too. Kevin Durant had me cracking up throughout this too. He reminded me so much of Drax, where it's like the Drax from the first Guardians movie, where it's more of him being oblivious and things are going over his head, and he's just not understanding what people are talking about, rather than him being like shouting and yelling and stuff that 2 and 3 kind of made him. This is the more subtle, like himbo, I would say, performance from somebody. Catherine Newton, dude, I gushed about her in Lisa Frankenstein. I'll gush about her again here. She's so damn good. She's becoming almost like a staple for me as like a horror queen at this point. And then of course
the amount of blood that she constantly drenches herself in every movie, it seems.
Melissa Barrera is also in that category too. She's really good in this. But Abigail herself, I mean, this little girl killed it and everything. I was having so much fun watching these characters interact and everything, especially in that first half, that I would say actually the only problem I had with this movie, and I hate to get to criticisms right now and everything, but everything else I really genuinely liked about this movie. And I was on such a high with this movie. I was really being like, damn, this actually might be like not top 5, but I can easily see this being in my top 10. It's not until we get to the third act. I think they do a twist, and they do another twist, and I think the movie just overstays its welcome during that third act. And I could get more into it later, but I'm going to pass it off to Dom for his initial thoughts.
Yeah, so definitely surprises all around. For me, I knew the I knew the basic plot premise going in, but when I saw those trailers in the theaters for the other movies we've been seeing, I really rolled my eyes. I'm like, I'm not looking forward to this one at all. Not a big fan of horror. I'm the not horror guy on this show. And yep, they say it right there in the trailer, but it's like, oh, ballerina vampire. How stupid does that sound? Right? That sounds so dumb to me. I'm sorry. And it's like, oh, it's probably gonna be an annoying kid or whatever. And it's like they're wasting Melissa Barrera and everyone else. I don't know who many of these they're probably cashing in on Catherine Newton or whatever. I don't know. I was very, very down on this movie mentally going in. And when I sat down to watch it, I was pretty much like Joe. I'm like, holy shit, we don't even have any Dracula shit going on, but I am so engaged right now for some reason. And it really does come down to the cast and of course the writing, but the cast is working really, really well together here. And it's really funny. I was like, almost like, can we just have like another 10 minutes of them hanging out first? Because the tension and how they're getting on each other's nerves is actually really funny.
It almost makes me wish this movie was called I know Steve had a way better title, but I really wish they would have just called it Ready or Not 2 and just have it be like the whole thematic tie, like similar to Cloverfield, is that like these movies are set in mansions. Like, it's just like
it's like a semi-anthology. Yeah,
semi-anthology in some stories that they're just set in like people are stuck in a place. It could be a mansion, whatever, and it's just a cast of characters like Ready or Not was. But go on.
Yeah, no, it was really, really fun to see how everything was leading up to the big reveal for at least the characters.
Yeah.
And then when it goes there, I was actually in for the ride, because I was more so dreading, not even like I'm going to be scared. No, I'm like dreading. It's like, all right, we're going to go through like, here's some kills. Who's going to die? What's going to happen here? How are they going to do it? And I was getting ready to be annoyed by it or just bored by it. And that really wasn't the case. And that really is buoyed by one, they did a decent job of like writing the second half of this movie, but two, I was totally in on these characters who are all just fundamentally very bad people. Because the whole conceit is that they kidnap a little girl. So like, that's evil. That's pretty evil, first and foremost. So there's a level of like, I'm getting attached, but it's okay. So whatever happens here. And from there, I was having a pretty damn good time. And I think I'm with you guys where it's like, oh boy, plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. And it kind of did cross a line after a point, but thankfully they didn't hang on it too much. But for the most part, I'm very happy with this movie.
the plot twist for me, and I hate to keep harping on it because there's so much other stuff I want to talk about and positive about this movie, but it really was a twist that I looked at and went, "You're only doing this because this is just the way to get out of the mansion." It isn't like, "Oh, this is happening because the story's actually developing." It's like, no, this is only happening so the characters have a way out. Like, that's the only reason why. Because I was so like, dude, I'm down just to keep this movie. Abigail's just gonna continue hunting these dudes, and they just need to figure out a way to defeat her or figure out her way out. But where it goes, and I hate to say, like, it steps away from that in the
I
final
hate being
climax.
vague. I hate being so vague.
Yeah, I do too. When it steps away from that in the final climax, I went, no, because like I really love the first act, and I was having such a blast with the second that this third act, I'm like, okay, like I'm enjoying it, but it's starting to, like, drag on now because of like how much you're changing now, like, and it's like, again, we already had to change the formula a big step because this went from like, I can't trust you either. Who's the real person? Who's the real, like, like pointing guns at each other. And then the vampire comes along and you're like, oh, okay, now it's this movie. Oh, okay, now this is happening. Okay, now this is, it's like, dude, all right, slow down. But other than that, I'm going to stop because I do want to get to the good in this movie.
Yeah, this movie does have, for early criticisms, this movie does have the problem of, I feel like this is a more recent problem with movies where it has like 2 or 3 plausible endings. Like, it has 2 or 3 plausible endings to it, and it keeps adding. It doesn't know where to stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't know where or when to stop, and it felt like there were so many like cool ideas proposed in the writer's room that they had to find a way to incorporate everything.
Yeah.
And so, no, I totally understand where you're coming from there. What I mean about, like, what I meant earlier, to go back to a comment I made about how I said that, like, a lot of the best stuff happens after the twist is revealed. What I mean by that is I think a lot of the movie's most memorable sequences happen. I think that's when a lot of the kills begin to happen too. So that's kind of what I was alluding to when it comes down to like discussion points and things like that.
It's also when what's her name? Alicia Ware. That's when she gets to like shine all the way through. Is when the second half starts.
Did you know, before I forget, because I don't want this to slip my mind, this will mean nothing to you, Dom, but it'll mean something to you, Joe. Did you know, minor spoiler here, FYI, did you take note at how when Joey, Melissa Barrera's character, was telling Abigail about her son, and she said and when she wouldn't give her son's name, Abigail came up with the name Justin?
Yeah.
And then it was, what was it revealed that Joey's son's real name was? Caleb.
Oh. Interesting that we're going into draft day tomorrow with that. Anyways.
Division runs.
Yeah, that really did mean nothing to me.
Division runs through Caleb Williams and the Bears as of tomorrow. Anyway, I just had to throw that out there because I was just like, no way. I'm like, oh shit, thank God his name wasn't Drake. Anyway, so going on though to talk about Abigail though and things like that. This is a movie, I said earlier, is buoyed greatly by its cast.
Yeah.
This is a cast that can overcome a story that isn't making any kind of grand statement or anything like that. It really isn't. It's more of a piece of kind of like pop fun, which is totally fine with me. The only thing elevated in this movie, I guess you could say, is just the extreme kills and the extreme exploding deaths of this movie. But Dan Stevens is a fucking riot. I mean, first things first, he's a riot here. There's a scene when he gets stabbed in the leg with a stake, and he's got a hilarious line I won't ruin, but he's got a hilarious line. And then there's another scene where he gives Melissa Barrera's character the syringe and says something like, "Oh, it's easy to say, you got the weapon that fucking works."
Dude, honestly,
there's
his character, I was like, God damn it, I hate applying this, but that is the Steve Pulaski of the group who makes side comments like this and will crack me the fuck up throughout the movie.
you know what? It's funny too, because you know what it reminded me of? Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the guy Scott Sice in Cocaine Bear who played the paramedic.
Yeah.
And it's the scene when the bear's chasing him in the ambulance and she's shooting and she shoots the tree and he goes, "Not the tree, the big fucking bear." And those are the lines, man. Those are the lines you remember in movies.
Especially like Catherine Noonan and Duran play off each other really well too. with like they're Noon's like kind of like an awkward like she's supposed to be like a high schooler again, even though she's 27 years old, but she's got like that awkward like hacker like living at home with her parents and everything like thing. And Duran like just plays off her well by being just like not antisocial, but just again just oblivious to everything. And then you throw him into the mix, him as in Dan Stevens, and it's like those three. Anytime they're on screen together, I was cracking up. And Melissa Barrera just being the one to be like, "Can y'all get your shit together? And can we just get this done?"
Yeah, so the types are perfect here. Kevin Durand might be a little underrated here. I think he's very funny.
Yeah.
It's funny in this movie, and I don't think I've really seen him in anything else. I can't really go off it.
He took a long break from acting and just started doing smaller stuff. This is like kind of this movie and soon to be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes are kind of his first movies back into the spotlight.
Because I remember he was in The Butterfly Effect. He kind of did go away there for a brief time. He was also in Fruitvale Station too. He was also in Fruitvale Station, the cop. In that he was in Noah too. Actually, I almost missed
his filmography shows that he had some consistent work through 2014 and then a 3-year break until 2017.
You know who he looks like here? He looks like Elon Musk, but with the personality of Drax.
I was
Guardians.
just thinking that.
Yeah, Elon Musk wishes he was as charismatic as Kevin Durand, though.
He looks like him. In this movie, I think I told Catherine,
he wishes he looked like Kevin Durand as well.
But he acts like Drax from Guardians.
He acts like he has a soul. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's dumb, but he's like got a heart. He's almost kind of like one of my favorite superhero characters ever, King Shark. He's almost like King Shark, which we'll never get that movie. But now this is good fun though. I don't have a ton to really say about this, but the other thing that's really delightful about this movie, and I'll say it's kind of going into break too, is that like it's really cool when you do get these kind of splatter movies and they got a decent enough story to them, because I think even the most astute horror fan who loves A24 and loves like a good like thinking man's horror movie or whatever, so to speak, is that like at least this movie is not afraid to like show you like some really crazy ass gory deaths in it, versus like a lot of these other like mostly bloodless movies that where the kills happen off screen and it all has to wrap around to grief in some particular
like
way.
How Terror is gonna be when it comes out.
Yeah, watch. Tarot is going to have some sort of grief metaphor because they're going to be trying to contact somebody who's dead or somebody, you know what I mean, or something like that. But no, like as far as kind of a no-nonsense movie is concerned, like I think this one, whatever misgivings about it, and there are, is greatly elevated by the cast. Do you want to take us into break with something, Joe, or something for us to hang on?
No, we can just go straight into break. Unless if Dom wants to throw something.
Any cliffhanger? Got a good cliffhanger? I talked for a while
The
there.
Dark Universe returns with Abigail. No. If they had started with this, well, we might have a whole franchise on our hands.
I mean,
actually, they mentioned it. There's in the Wikipedia, Universal apparently was like considering it, but then they were like, no, we're going to do what we should have done in the first place, which is just do your own thing. And then we'll think about that later.
Again,
this is technically part of that doesn't exist anymore, but it's a reworking of the failure that was the Dark Universe.
Yeah.
That makes sense, actually.
Like Invisible Man, like Renfield. It's a reworking then.
Yeah.
Because the after The Mummy failed, the direction they went in was like these filmmaker driven, hire these directors that like are known for making these kind of genre movies like Leigh Whannell with the Saw movies, the Radio Silence team, and then have them develop stories, new and sort of creative stories with it. We got to take a break here. We will come back, probably give our final thoughts on Abigail, and then parlay that into our discussion about the Blair Witch Project actors. A lot of crazy shit going on there. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes on Sleepless with Steve. Back and better than ever. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We are talking about Abigail, the brand new movie from Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, also known as Radio Silence. I kind of gabbed quite a bit about the movie before break, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Dom. I feel like you've said the least so far.
No, I just really had a lot of fun with it because I will be biased probably in my final star rating just because of the surprise factor. Not that I knew the Dracula vampire aspect. Although how awesome would it be if you pull this up? It's like, hey, let's watch this movie called Abigail. Okay. And they have no idea what's going into this blind will be the absolute best experience, but so don't listen to us, I guess. But regardless, it's a really good time, and I'm really I, I didn't really have much more to say just because it's such a straightforward experience. Once you get into the swing of things, which it doesn't really have. It took a little more time, and I'm very glad for that. And it used that extra time effectively. Um, so yeah, it's good to see. I mean, who else on this? Catherine Newton. I don't know how much we've said about her, but she's having a really good couple of years in acting so far with Lisa Frankenstein. Which however we felt about that movie,
She was like the best part
she
about
she she was really good in it. Yeah, and also I was gonna make the joke that's like, yeah, she was also really good in Drive Away Dolls and Poor Things. No, I'm kidding. I do get those two confused sometimes. Real quick, but with her and Margaret Qualley. But for the most part, this is a really tight cast that there's really not much wasted, and everyone is absolutely doing their. I mean, Giancarlo Esposito probably has the least to do here, but he's like, yeah, he's doing his Gus Fring thing, right? There's pre Gus Fring and post Gus Fring in that man's career, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and I love it. So, and so he doesn't overstay his welcome either. And honestly, it's like the extra character that they show at the very end. I'm like, what is going on here? I was like, yeah, he's doing good too. He does all right. So, for the most part, I'm just really happy about this movie.
Joe, anything left or do you want to add your star rating there too?
Oh yeah, I
Might as well
honestly I'll
parlay.
give this 3.5 out of 4 stars just because
Fair,
it
yeah.
was such a fun and pleasant surprise, and it was straightforward. Right, I'm not saying this is really elevating too much of the genre, just that it was a very very solid. I mean that from coming from me, that's saying something. So it's a good creature feature and a really really fun, cleverly written and very well acted bloody mess.
Go you, Joe, and then I'll do final word for this.
Uh, yeah, I mean, and look, despite my criticism about how this all ends, I still think it's a fun ride the whole way through. I had a great time with this. I was laughing. I was saying, "Oh my god," to a lot of the kills or just brutality of the movie. Look, man, if you know Radio Silence, they love making people pop, and that's all I'm gonna say. They do some cool stuff with the vampire mythology here, even though they break kind of another thing about the third act is like they set up some rules about vampire mythology in their universe, and then they just don't use them in the third act, or they just don't let them apply. Then it's just like, oh, okay, I'm like, we just established that, but okay. But other than that, man, I mean, it's characters and it's writing, and Radio Silence is keeping the pace and moving in this movie. Like, even though I knew what the twist was, I felt like these guys gave such great direction to their cast and kept the movie in such a great setting and pace that, like, hey, I know what this movie is and what it's going to become, but I'm enjoying how they are discovering, like Dom even said, how they're discovering that Abigail is a vampire. This movie is a budget of $28 million, and I kind of been on a little tirade on Twitter the last few days about making small to mid-sized movies again. Not that I don't mind the big budget movies, but mid-sized budget movies like this allow actors like Dan Stevens, Melissa Barrera, Kevin Durant, Catherine Noonan to continue to showcase how damn good they are and that they are up-and-coming great actors or actors that people don't know about. Low to mid-level movies really do that, and Abigail's just another good, like, mid-level budget movie that I think, like, Hollywood should take more chances with and just do stuff like this. It's $28 million. It's going to make its money back easily on good word of mouth, especially within the horror crowd, and it actually being a good movie. For me, it is 3 out of 4 stars. It could have been that 3.5 out of 4 stars if that ending, I think, would have stuck, the landing. And I probably would have been in the same spot as Dom. But right now, I mean, like, I had a ton of fun with this movie. And I totally don't like disparage anybody, like in Dom's case, that would give it that such high of a rating, because it generally was that fun and that much of a surprise seeing it play out.
Yeah, it's 3 out of 4 stars for me as well. I enjoyed this too. I was optimistic about it too because as much as I was not a fan, and I even look less on those Scream movies that they did, I think this is a realm in which they're comfortable. Clearly, they know how to make horror movies. The Radio Silence team, they know how to give you just enough of a plot to reel you in. And then when they play with sort of form and they play with violence and they play with like deaths and everything like that, they're very creative, and it's very fun because there's a nice element here. I didn't see the twists coming, one or at least one of them. And not the major one, but the one of the ones at the end. So I like the element of there's a little bit of unpredictability. Like you're never quite sure because these characters are like, they're just untrustworthy enough where they're unpredictable, but they're also like, they start to work together in ways you might not have foreseen. So you're wondering kind of their motivations throughout the whole movie as well. Yeah, it's good. I thought that this movie does have a lot of fun with sort of its own genre and its own sense of style too. So yeah, it's a solid 3 out of 4 stars for me. Rest in peace, Angus Cloud, too.
Yeah.
I know we didn't touch too much on him. He's not in the movie very much, but he is good. He's good for what they want him to be in this movie. You know, for kind of the character he plays. I think I said earlier he's kind of like a cross between Pete Davidson and Bodies, 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 with sort of the kind of like laconic line delivery of Post Malone.
Yeah.
You know.
He's very
not Roadhouse.
He's very charismatic though the whole way through. Like I mean, like it's just like he's such a dumb goof, but he's so fun to watch play in this movie.
Excellent stuff, guys. We will pivot here to talk a little bit about this story. I promised I would lead the charge on it because I was the one who did kind of see this kind of manifest and start a couple of weeks ago over on my Facebook page. It's the Blair Witch Project. It's back in the news because Blumhouse wants to do another Blair Witch movie. If you guys remember, the last Blair Witch movie was 2016, I want to say.
Yes.
2016.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting thing with that movie. I don't know if you guys remember it. It was directed by Adam Wingard, who made the Godzilla versus Kong movies. It was his last horror movie before he took on those movies. And the Blair Witch movie was all hype and no delivery, but how they did it was interesting. Maybe you might remember, Joe. I'll rehash this for you, Dom, and the audience as well. So there was a movie, and it was quite heavily promoted. I believe there was a teaser trailer, and I believe that, and I know there were posters because I tried to get one at my local theater, but I couldn't. It was Adam Wingard was making a movie called The Woods, and that's how it was promoted for like the better part of 6 months. It was called The Woods. And the trailer or the poster was cool. It was like a red tinted poster, and it was just looking up at like dead trees in the middle of the woods. Well, when the movie was set to premiere at South by Southwest, it said like at this time at like 8 o'clock, tonight's the premiere of the movie, The Woods. The lights went down and it was revealed to be Blair Witch.
Yeah. I remember that was like one of the things that made me go, I need to go South by Southwest one year.
Because that was crazy. And even people who were at that premiere said that like when you went in the theater, there was posters and standees of like that said The Woods. Then when the movie played and the lights went down, the lights went back up and it was all Blair Witch shit.
Yeah. Which is actually cool because it kind of plays with what happens in that movie too, of like stuff moving around when they're not looking.
And then the poster was cool because I just mentioned it. You can look up the Woods movie poster, and then the Woods 2016 poster. The Blair Witch poster then that they released was like all the trees got tied together in the form of the Blair Witch logo.
Yeah.
which was really cool. I mean, A plus marketing right there. A plus like sneak marketing right there. Not a lot of you don't get that very often. It's maybe once every few years that you get a movie like that
Yeah.
that's just a total bait and switch.
Dom, the best way to put it, it was like when Kojima made the Phantom Pain, but he didn't call it Metal Gear Solid just yet.
Exactly. Or even the PT playable teaser.
Playable teaser, yeah.
Remember
and it
that?
turned out to be Silent Hill.
Turned out to be Silent Hills. Go.
Yeah,
A
those
lot
are
of fun.
probably pretty good though. This Blair Witch movie wasn't that good.
Those are
That's the
Yeah.
postscript. That's the postscript. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm friends with Joshua Leonard on my Facebook, and I saw this. It's about 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago. I won't read the whole post, but he did post this, and it caught my eye. He said, going public with this and would appreciate the amplification. So he mentioned that Blumhouse released a press release along with some original photos of the Blair Witch Project and talked about redoing, like, creating a new Blair Witch movie. So the post he wrote, though, is he said, in reference to the press release. He said, so this is my face on a press release for a film being made by two major studios, Lionsgate and Blumhouse. Both I've worked for, both I respect. The weird part is that I didn't know anything about it until a friend sent me a congrats screenshot yesterday. My frustration is compounded because I've been trying to get Lionsgate to engage for over a month about a Blair Witch Project charity screening I'm putting together for Positive Fest, Positive Fest, to raise money for artists without health care, and no one will get back to me. And yes, I've been thinking a lot about this time after seeing my Blair Witch collaborators recently and sharing memories, sweet and fucked up ones. And then he goes on to list like the facts that a lot of people would probably maybe forget because the movie is so old. But when the movie came out, like they basically, first off, after the movie was done, they wanted the actors to go into hiding in so many words. Like Heather Donahue, who's now Ray Hance, Mike C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard. These guys were not. They were like up and like this was like their first movie, for lack of a better term. So they weren't known. They wanted them to go into hiding for like 7 to 8 months because they wanted to pass the movie off as real. And then there was that whole famous case where Lionsgate tried to own the rights to their names. They tried to own the rights to their actual names, and they had to go to fucking court to get their names back for this. Like, there's probably a documentary to be made on how screwed up it was, because that movie, it became such a cultural phenomenon so fast, and it's easy to forget, but that was a movie too. It was like one of the first mainstream found footage movies. It was shot for like pennies on the dollar. It was cheap as shit to make. It made a whirlwind of money. The three people at the center of it were not members of the Actors Guild. They were not reputable, popular actors at the time. So they were kind of up against a major studio powerhouse that just had this $100-200 million hit and all this internet buzz and all these rumors circulating that it was real, that they really didn't know. It all took off so quickly, and we'll never see something like that again, because the internet again was so new at the time that there wasn't a lot of information. There was a movie website dedicated with missing posters with these guys on it too. Like, it's easy to forget how massive the Blair Witch Project was when it was out. But now basically that post from Joshua Leonard has really started its own fire. And has gotten picked up by a lot of outlets. New York Times just did a piece on it today.
Oh, that's good.
And Leonard Donahue, again, who's now Ray Hance, she changed her name a couple of years ago, and Michael Williams have all released a public letter to Lionsgate asking for more compensation for their work on the Blair Witch Project. And it comes, again, about 10 days after Lionsgate and Blumhouse announced they wanted to revive the franchise. And they acquired the rights to it because the distributor that made that movie, Artisan Entertainment, that they don't exist anymore. They bought the rights to it in 2003, and that's why we got that Wingard movie, too. He also said, too, since they shot and improvised that movie over like a week, they made $300,000 from a buyout of their ownership points on the film. The movie went on to gross, here's the actual figure, $248 million worldwide.
Wow.
And then in 2002, the trio sued Artisan Entertainment for using their names and likenesses in the studio's sequel, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Um, and basically, then, what they're asking for is retroactive and future residual payments equivalent to the sum that would have been allotted through SAG-AFTRA had we had proper union or legal representation when the film was made. They also asked for meaningful consultation on any future Blair Witch reboot, sequel, prequel, toy, game, ride, escape room, etc., in which one could reasonably assume that Heather, Michael, and Josh's names and or likenesses would be associated for promotional purposes in the public sphere. I think that's the fucking least they could do.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's the least they could do. It is wild. I mean, you want to talk, we joke all the time at, well, like, both radio stations I've worked for. Like, when stuff gets lost or we hear about things last minute that we work in the communications industry, that's always like a running joke at the radio stations I've worked at. But man, you see it here too. Like, Leonard had no idea about that movie until he got a text and they were using his likeness on the press release. That feels especially smarmy. I think the least that Lionsgate could do with this is to give them consultation, especially if they're going to use their damn images and stuff like that. They weren't in, the three of them weren't in Book of Shadows. I mean, they died at the end of Blair Witch Project, spoiler alert, for a movie that's almost 30 years old. But they weren't in Book of Shadows 2, and they weren't in the Blair Witch movie in 2016, but they're referenced in it.
Yeah.
They're referred to quite a bit, especially in the newer one. But yeah, this was something too that was kind of just an interesting thing to see, that, like, see Joshua Leonard's post and be like, yeah, dude, that is kind of a disgrace that they did that, and then have it snowball into something like this. I think the other especially shitty thing about this whole thing too is that what Joshua Leonard said, and this part's kind of gotten lost and everything, but like, he was actively trying to get a Blair Witch charity screening off the ground with Lionsgate, and they ghosted him, all while they're trying to revive the franchise. If you want to think from a marketing perspective, don't you think that this would go hand in hand? That this would actually be kind of a hand-in-hand thing to do, but it involves giving, plebeians health care. So what the hell does that matter?
It'd be really funny if they were still trying to pass it off as, no, these people died in the 90s. Like, they died in the house. Like, if like, that's like a 20-year-long bit.
Don't put it past the marketing rep of Lionsgate being like, they didn't actually die.
It's so crazy because, again, I don't mean to make another video game comparison like I did with Dom when we were talking about how, like, the Blair Witch's marketing, the 2016 version compared to, like, video game world marketing. But, like, literally the video gamers just got another video game adaptation on Amazon Prime, Fallout, and it was really good. And it's like, alongside with that, the developer of the game, Bethesda, put out a bundle where you can get all the Fallout games and also donate to a charity. I forgot what charity it was. For $25. Like, you could get all these games for $25, all of its downloadable content, everything. For $25, it goes to there. It's like they did, like, hand-in-hand marketing. Like, hey, we'll team up with this charity thing. We'll use our game to that. And it's going to get a big boost in sales because the TV show is getting a good reception. And it's just like, and you look at the film industry and they're like, nah.
Nah.
Not that the video game industry is all that good either, but, like, come on.
I hope I gave a halfway decent enough overview on this, because, like I said, it is lofty. It is going to be interesting to see where this goes to, because, like, I feel like this is the bigger story than the Blair Witch is getting revived, because I think this, it'll probably do well. I know the new Blair Witch movie in 2016, even with that whole marketing stunt they pulled, I know it didn't do as well as they hoped. It really didn't. And I think the Blair Witch Project, to me, and that's a movie I really like. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. It's a movie I really liked. I saw it when I was really young, on VHS. And I did a lot of reading into it. I have a couple Blair Witch books at my dad's place, actually, still. And I'm a big fan of Book of Shadows, which I think is one of the most disrespected horror sequels. I'm serious. Have you seen it?
I have, yeah.
It is one of the most disrespected fucking horror sequels in history. It's not even funny. That's a great movie. That is a great movie. If you saw that the year after the original came out and hated it, I totally understand it. I totally get it. I probably would have hated it too initially. Go back and watch that thing. That is a solid movie, and it's very early 2000s. There's some new metal drops in that movie.
It is.
There's some.
It is unshamefully early 2000s.
Like but the Blair Witch, I think it goes back to this, and this is after saying the Book of Shadows. Like I going back to talking about like this franchise revival and everything. I feel like this was a movie you could really only do once. Like you could,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Paranormal Activity was the same thing. It's like the more movies they made on it, the less they explained,
Yeah.
and the less that they tried to like really wrap things up and more just keep it
I
going.
was gonna say, shit, actually, I think the Paranormal Activity movies are the opposite. The more they kept going, the more they started explaining the world, and it just didn't get scary anymore.
I felt just as lost like by the third one. I'm like, you know, there's these are loose ends that are just gonna stay
Okay, all right, yeah, now
persistent.
I see what you mean. I just thought, like, in my mind, it's like, you guys keep explaining everything, but it means nothing to me when it's like, I'm just here for what I got in that first movie.
It's kind of true too.
Yeah.
We'll go
The-
Dom. You'll go Dom. I'll let you kind of expound on this, and then we'll go Joe for since I kind of dominated the discussion there. I hope I gave some clarity though, at least.
Yeah, I mean, greedy fucks are gonna for greedy fuck. That's basically what this comes around to. And the fact that they put out that letter, their tactic is to elicit enough public sympathy, which they should be doing because they didn't have any union representation, and it's really going to come down to will Lionsgate or and associated property studios or business entities, will they cave to it? Then we'll just have to wait and see. I'm with you, Steve, in the sense that anything they do with Blair Witch at this point really can't live up to that first one. The true legacy to Blair Witch is honestly YouTube analog horror. Not that I hope I'm not forcing that back into the conversation because I love it so much, but that's really what it comes down to. And it's like the through line is right there. And that's what that indie spirit that's right. I mean, well, I guess it's not indie, right? Because the original Blair Witch isn't quite indie, but it's got that small scale spirit that makes it really engaging and really like it feels so personal, more so than any sorry, in a unique way that maybe bigger budgets can't quite do. And I don't know, maybe they turn it into an anthology again, but so many other entities are trying to do that. I mean, I don't know, like how's the VHS anthology series? Speaking of Abigail, have you guys seen anything from that? I haven't. I've only read that series was the thing, but I don't know. For me, um, we will always have that first one, and that I don't think I've actually ever seen it in full. Like I've never sat. I didn't see it in the theater, of course, but I've tried watching bits and pieces on YouTube, at home, online, on YouTube. But I can't do it because it affects me that profoundly. Um, and that's if that's all we ever get from Blair Witch, that's already a shit ton. It is a very important film, particularly in the horror genre, and uh, the worth that you get from it culturally should be matched in the material reparations, the material payback for these actors that are continuously getting melted. Because that's the whole thing. The whole thing was these three real people went missing supposedly, and it sucks that. Man, was I in Vegas when they had that escape room? I might have gone to that. Regardless, we'll just have to wait and see if there's ever any update on this. I'd like for us to revisit it just to see where it goes.
I
It
would
sucks.
too. What say you, Joe?
Hey, look, dude, we got done talking about SAG-AFTRA month after month. Just give these guys what they deserve already, man.
Honestly, it looks like that played really well into the actor's decision
Yeah, honestly,
to
yeah.
release the letter, which is brilliant strategy. Very
Like,
good.
the fact that it worked out so good for the union itself and everything is like, hey, and same thing with the Writers Guild. They were like, you know what, we should take our chance and voice our like opinion, and that's great. That's great that they actually did, because we would have gone in Blumhouse rebooting another franchise from back then, and nobody would have known this any better about like what's going on with the original three people who created the Blair Witch. Yeah, just give these people what they deserve, man. I am like of course more interested to see how this story develops than what's gonna happen with the Blair Witch, because it's just like, to me, that that story, I agree with Steve. It was like it was fun for that first one, but I don't know if you can recreate that magic again. It's just like I don't know if you could. They tried doing it in 2016, making it found footage and everything. Then they tried doing a video game version of it, and it sucked ass. And I'm just like, you know what, man? I'm like, just leave it as is. And now we're gonna give it to Blumhouse, who, look, man, I saw what you guys did with the Exorcism. I'm not gonna say anything, but maybe it's best to leave things the way they are and just keep doing new shit, Jason. Like I don't know.
Look at that! Look at that Wikipedia, collapsible at the bottom of any Blair Witch thing. That's way too small. We need more. We need more properties. We need more. We need to multiply it so that we can get more money from it.
God, 25th anniversary of the Blair Witch Project. That's crazy, and they won't do an actual. They won't do a charity screening of it. 25 years. That movie's been getting by. Only that movie, none of the other ones, but nah.
It's also sad too, doing research on this for the show. I learned that Heather Donahue since changed her name to Ray Hance, and I guess she had a really extremely problematic episode. I didn't listen to the podcast where she talked about it, but she basically had this really problematic episode in 2021 where she said that basically what she did was she was like a nomad and drove around different parts of the United States and basically lived in motels and shit and tried to drink herself to death, essentially. And she's good now. She changed her name again to Ray Hance, and now she doesn't act anymore. She hasn't acted in 15 plus years, but I think she's an adjunct professor.
Yeah.
I think she's an adjunct professor. She's a writing teacher too. So it's nice to see that she's gotten back on her feet in some ways. It was Michael C. Williams, the heavier set guy in it, who had the flannel in the original movie. I think now he's a theater teacher. I think that Leonard was really the only one who consistently still acts.
Yeah.
Michael C. Williams, and now I think he's the theater director at a high school or something like that, which is cool. I mean, it's crazy that these guys are just regular people now for all intents and purposes. They're basically regular individuals, and it would be nice to see them get compensated in some sort of way for this, for sure. We'll touch on this. I'm going to try to keep tabs on this, and I don't think it'll be too hard with having Leonard on my Facebook page. I don't think it'll be too hard. If there's any updates on this, I'll be sure to shoot them your way.
Josh Leonard married Kim Pine, aka Allison Pill. Bro.
Oh, dude. Nice.
Oh, I misspoke then. I thought he was married to Jess Wexler, the star of The Lie. My bad.
Yeah, good,
that's
good for him.
Cool. That's cool. Good to hear on that. That's a nice little positive note to end the show on today. Really good show, gentlemen. Next week, we will start off the month of May with a review of Challengers, which I know we're all looking forward to. We didn't review it on the show, but I know I talked about it at length during the wrap-up show, during the wrap-up of the year, the best movies of 2023. Bones and All was so goddamn good. It's so good. It's going to be hard for... And I know, Call Me By Your Name is a new queer classic. So Luca Guadagnino is always going to be, remembered for that. But man, Bones and All, though, with Challengers coming out and seeing the trailer and stuff like that, I just remember how profoundly I was invested in that movie. Bones and All, I've seen it twice now. It's so good. I'm hoping Challengers lives up to what has been a really solid marketing campaign. Some really good trailers. I think it's probably the first mainstream tennis movie since Battle of the Sexes. I think
so. That's what I think of when just because of tennis movies. Yeah. And I really liked Battle of the Sexes.
That was a good one. We did touch on that in the original Sleepless. That was a good movie. Not a one that gets really discussed very much, but and I've already thought of a line for my review for Challengers. Just like in tennis, Challenger starts with love. I've already thought of my opening line for my review, whether I like it or hate it. That's our show tonight, though. Gentlemen, great job as always. I know we're tired. I know it's been an exhausting couple of weeks, particularly for you, Joe, with school and everything. But I always appreciate both of you showing up to do this show and do it justice like you do every week. So it doesn't go unnoticed on my end. I'll be waiting in about 30 years when you guys come after me for retroactive royalties. Gives me something to think about, too, if nothing else. That's our show tonight, though. Really good stuff. We'll be back next week with a review of Challengers and whatever news happens to cross our desk. For Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.